Let's be honest for a moment. If you're trying to become fluent in another language, the way you've probably been taught to do it might actually be holding you back. You study vocabulary, memorize grammar rules, and spend hours with textbooks. But when it's time to actually use the language, your mind goes blank. You freeze. It feels like you're putting in the work, but getting nowhere. If that sounds familiar, the good news is this: you're not alone, and it's not your fault. The problem usually isn't the learner, it's the method. For decades, language learning has focused on memorizing rules and vocabulary lists, but that approach often clashes with how our brains naturally learn language. Instead of building real fluency, it can trap people in endless studying without real progress. You stare at grammar charts until your eyes glaze over. You memorize new words only to forget them the next day. You might know the rules, but you still struggle to form a simple sentence in a real conversation. That's what we can call the language learning trap. But here's the interesting part. Your brain already has a system for learning language. You used it effortlessly when you were a child. The key is to stop treating language as something you only study and start acquiring it naturally. To understand why this works, we need to look at two different kinds of knowledge. The first is declarative knowledge. Think of it as your brain's filing cabinet for facts. It's when you consciously remember a grammar rule or a word from a vocabulary list. This is the type of learning most schools emphasize. It's like reading the instruction manual for a car. You know what all the parts are called, but that doesn't mean you can drive. The real goal is procedural knowledge. This is the automatic skill of using the language without thinking about rules. It's the difference between reading the manual and actually getting behind the wheel and driving smoothly down the road. That automatic ability to understand and communicate is what we call fluency. When you compare the two, the difference becomes clear. Learning is a conscious process focused on rules and memorization. Acquisition, on the other hand, is mostly subconscious. It happens through understanding messages and being exposed to the language again and again. It's the same process every one of us used to learn our first language. So how do we tap into that natural system? The answer is immersion. Immersion generally comes in two forms. The first is active immersion. This is focused time with the language, watching a show, reading a book, or listening carefully while trying to understand what's happening. This is where you build most of your comprehension. The second is passive immersion. This happens while you're doing something else, like listening to a podcast while cooking or driving. The goal here isn't active learning, but letting your brain become familiar with the sounds, rhythm, and flow of the language. Within active immersion, there are also two useful styles. The first is intensive study. This is when you pause, look up unfamiliar words, and try to understand grammar or meaning more carefully. It builds knowledge but can be slow. The second style is free flow focus. Here you simply follow the story and let the language wash over you without constantly stopping to analyze it. You trust your brain to start connecting the dots over time. A healthy balance between these two approaches works best. If this sounds complicated, the journey can actually be described with a very simple roadmap. A model often discussed by polyglot Steve Kaufman breaks it down into stages. During the first 3 months, your main goal is simply to connect with the language. Listen to simple stories, repeat them, and get comfortable hearing the language again and again. Between about 3 and 9 months, you begin expanding into more interesting content, TV shows, podcasts, and material you actually enjoy. At this stage, comprehension grows quickly, and the language starts to feel more familiar. After around 9 months, many learners reach a point where they can understand most everyday native content. From there, improvement continues naturally as you keep engaging with the language. Now, this all sounds good in theory, but here's the real question. How do you actually apply this in everyday life? How do you get consistent exposure, content you understand, and something that keeps you engaged? That's exactly the problem I wanted to solve with my German language learning app. This is Gimli, the language learning app that brings you the simple idea. Learn German the way your brain actually learns, through comprehensive inputs. Because fluency doesn't come from studying harder, it comes from understanding more. With Gimli, you're not studying the language. You're experiencing it through stories, i.e., short, engaging content that gives you real exposure without overwhelming you. You focus on one skill at a time: reading, listening, writing, or speaking. And over time, you combine all four into real fluency. So if you're interested in learning German this way and have a phone and access to the Google Play Store, which I assume you do, you can try it by scanning the QR code on the screen, or just find it on the Google Play Store by searching for Gimli. Okay, that's enough exposition. Let's go continue with the video. Now, even with a clear roadmap and an awesome app, success depends on the right mindset. The first rule is accepting that you won't understand everything. In fact, for a long time, you may not understand most of it. Learning to tolerate that uncertainty is essential. The second rule is consistency. You need to interact with the language every day, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Consistent exposure keeps your brain building and strengthening those language pathways. And the third rule is trusting the process. Language acquisition doesn't show progress day by day. It unfolds over weeks and months. Some days it may even feel like you're going backward. That's normal. Those hours of exposure are quietly building understanding beneath the surface. So the roadmap is simple. Move away from memorizing rules and toward meaningful exposure. Let your brain do what it evolved to do: acquire language through understanding. Fluency isn't about studying harder. It's about learning in a way that actually matches how the brain works. And once you understand that, the real question isn't how you'll learn a language. It's which new world you want to explore first. That's it for this video. I hope you learned something new. Regarding Gimli, the development is still in the progress, so I hope you like it even if it's not complete. I'd also like to make some demo videos on how I use the app, so stay tuned. As well, if the app turns to be a hit, then I might also make more apps like that for different languages. But we'll see.